Hey guys, how's it going? Anthony Muthurajah here, back with a new video lesson for you guys. Today I want to talk about ear training, most importantly the fundamentals behind ear training. Alright, so now most people often associate ear training with purely harmony and melody, hearing just that, especially melody. But it is beyond that. Ear training involves hearing rhythms, hearing structures, chord progressions, the form of a song. Even that has a lot to do with how your ears are developed, right? So I want to take a very close look at the fundamentals of each of these elements, starting with harmony. Okay, now with harmony, we tend to struggle hearing extended chords or chords with a lot of tensions, polychords and all that stuff. And that's simply because we don't have a good foundational source of training our ears, which is triads. Triads essentially is everything. And if you're able to hear and really master hearing triads, you'll be able to further develop your hearing of tensions and polychords and all the other goodies. Alright, so speaking of triads, the first thing I want to talk about is root motion. Root motion is simply the motion of the root note in the chord progression. Alright, if I take a 2, 5, 1 progression, for example, in the key of C. Okay, that's your root motion, D, G, C. But now, it's very important to hear that root motion even if it's not there in the song or if it's not very obvious. If I have something like 2, 5, 1, very important to do it that way. So I start off with just triads actually. So I'll just play 2, 2, 5, 1. Okay, and then all inversions. 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1. Okay, so I sing the root motion while cycling through different inversions of the triad. And now what starts to happen is that no matter what inversion it is, you know it is da do do boo do do. That's the root motion. Alright, so obviously do this with triads and eventually do it with seventh chords. So with seventh chords it'll be 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1. Okay, and then eventually look into tensions. 2, 5, 1, 2, 2, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1. Okay, so spend a lot of time that way. Take standards or just take songs you know and figure out the root motion, right? And then once you have the root motion down, fill in the chords relevant to how you hear it. Okay, now sometimes hearing is very subjective. What is an A minor 7 to you is a C major 6 to me. Perception varies, so there is no real right or wrong way to hear something, but it's essentially about hearing something. Alright, so that's root motion. Start with triads, then seventh chords, and then alterations of the chords. And constantly sing the root motion. Sing it out loud because you really want to develop an ear for this, right? So that is one, and then you can get into more complex chord progressions eventually. But I would take small fragments, 2-5-1s, 1-6-2-5, and then a blues maybe, then rhythm changes, really trying to focus on the root motion element of it. So you're really specific with what you hear and what you play. So this way you can't really bullshit your way around. You have to really know. Right? So now the next thing in harmonic hearing is to hear structures or the form of a song. And again, I like to use root motion to determine that. Okay, so there are two things to pay attention to when you're trying to determine the form: root motion and then the phrasing of the progression and melody. More than often, you'll see sometimes a groove written in 6/8 when actually it should be 12/8 because the phrasing is twice as long, right? But people say, oh, it's the same thing, 6/8 and 12/8 is just twice as much. No, it doesn't work that way. It's 12/8 because of how it's phrased. So it's very important to hear that element of phrasing. So since we're discussing only harmony, I want to talk about just harmonic elements, right? So if you take a blues, let's do a B flat blues. So 1, 4, 1, 1, 4, 4, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Right? So that's the root motion. And then play the chords, play the voicings. So B flat 7. 1, 4, 1, 1, 4, 4, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Okay, now this is actually a lot harder than it seems. I've done this a lot, so it's a little easier for me. But to sing very specific note, the root only, on top of the blues changes, it's tricky. Okay, so now once you have done root motion, you might have guessed what's the next thing to do, to sing the next tone in the chord, so to sing the third. So if you have a B flat blues, 4, 4, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Right? So now I'm singing, I'm still sticking to the root motion as what I'm saying out as far as a syllable goes, but I'm starting to change the pitch. So now what this does is it really helps you effectively hear every chord tone against the chord, to sing it and to still continue playing. You can walk the bass line if you're a bass player and do this, or you can play the chords and do this if you're a piano player, guitar player, or even play the chords as a bass player. It doesn't hurt yourself to do that, right? So just to briefly recap, I spoke about root motion and then singing the root motion purely from the tonic point of view. And once you're fairly comfortable, add seventh chords and then add alterations and tensions. And then to hear the form, we start off again with root motion purely based on the root, and to sing the root motion while playing the relevant bass lines or chord progression, and then eventually to start singing the different chord tones while still playing your regular bass line or whatever it is you were doing previously. So this is not a fixed way to do things. You can mix and match, you can do it as you wish, but this is a great way to go about with training your ears to hear harmony and root motion, which in turn helps you hear chord progressions, which in turn helps you hear structure or the form of a song. You would notice people often get thrown off with a form which has AAB, for example, right? Or a 16-bar form where the last 4 bars is a turnaround, which is essentially like the first 4 bars, like the Chicken or Cantaloupe Island. More than often, most people mess that up so bad, especially when it gets into the solos. People just lose it. Right? So it's very crucial to fundamentally get these things down. All right, so that is it for this part. The next part I will talk about hearing rhythms, and then I'll talk about melody, because melody makes sense only because of rhythm. All right, so I'll see you guys with part 2 pretty soon. Until then, I'll see you in the shed. Peace.